This is a lovely spot diagnosis that was shared with me by Dr. Antonina Kalmylova from CSD Healthcare in Kyiv, Ukraine. And it's one of these entities that once you've seen an example, you never forget it. But for those of you who haven't seen one, here's a perfect example. It's a biopsy from the mouth, and you can tell that by the absence of any cutaneous appendage structures and by the fact that the epithelium lies directly on the lamina propria. Now, if we look at the lesion, we can see that it's presenting as a rather depressed lesion with a collarette on either side, and there's a raggedy surface. The lesion shows a dimorphic population of basophilic cells at the bottom, merging with rather more eosinophilic epithelium at the top. And if we look at this more closely, one can get a nice sense of what's going on. Even at this magnification, we can actually see the true diagnosis. Now, some of you might have thought of this as representing a viral wart, and certainly the configuration of the lesion would support that idea, but there is an absence of koilocytosis anywhere throughout this lesion, which would make that diagnosis most unlikely. Now, if we look here at the base of the lesion, one can see the connective tissue contains large numbers of strikingly pale cells, and if we look at that more closely, one can see them completely stuffing the connective tissue. And at high power magnification, we can see that these are xanthoma cells with rather hyperchromatic central nuclei and grayish granular cytoplasm. And there we see it in high power view. And this is a typical Verruciform xanthoma, which is more commonly encountered around the mouth and inside the oral cavity, but it may also present in the skin, most frequently around the external genitalia, particularly in females, but it has been described at other sites. Generally, they've been acral rather than involving the trunk or abdomen. So we'll just go back to the lower power view and have another look at the epidermis, or sorry, the squamous epithelium. And if we look at that more carefully, we can see that this is undergoing a degenerative phenomenon. And if we look very closely, we can see that some of the keratinocytes are anucleate, so they're actually dead. And it's thought that Verruciform xanthoma most likely develops as a consequence of squamous epithelial degeneration and necrosis, with release of lipid structures which are then taken up by histiocytes in the underlying connective tissue. I'm not sure that's really proven, but that's the hypothesis that people come up with. There have been attempts to link this lesion with an HPV infection, and there are one or two case reports where PCR have in fact shown wart virus infection, but perhaps those lesions were actually Verruciform-like xanthoma changes arising in a viral wart. By and large, there is no evidence to support the suggestion that this is HPV related. Anyway, it's a spot diagnosis, once seen, never forgotten. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you very much.